Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Antara and thank you for joining me. Today is 21st June and it is official International Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to everyone. Today is also a solar eclipse happening right now. So how does a solar eclipse happen? Let me know if you are hearing me correctly, if I'm audible. So I was talking about the solar eclipse that is happening right now, and how does it happen? How does it occur? When Earth, Sun, and Moon forms a straight line, they come in a straight line, and Moon casts a shadow on Earth, and uh, Earth gets engulfed either partially or completely with Moon's shadow. So I'm sure you know your astronomy, but then I just wanted to show off. Now, a solar eclipse is studied not only under science, but it is also studied uh, hugely under pseudoscience, for example, astrology. Now, I'm sure you are aware that how much astrology is popular, not only in India but globally. You can just see the number of websites or the applications available which are associated with astrology, and I'm trying to talk about the association with eclipse, solar eclipse, and astrology. Now in India, astrology has become our custom, a tradition. Like, I'm sure many households in India follow certain traditions which are associated with solar eclipse, and even if we are not aware, even if we are not 100% sure of the scientific logic, but then we still follow them just because maybe our ancestors were following. So there is always this tug of war happening between uh, astrology, between the alignment of stars, planets, constellations, and your faith and your destiny. So our guest author for today, Vaishnavi Sanoj, has tried to deal with a similar story in her romance novel Sidereal Destiny, which talks about the story, or which talks about the influence of astrology over love. I'm sure there is much more than this aspect in the story, but then it will be more interesting to hear from Vaishnavi herself. So without wasting much time, without delaying further, I would like to invite Vaishnavi Sanoj to join me, and I really hope she accepts my request now. And we are waiting for Vaishnavi to join us. Yay! You have made
Hi,
it.
hi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Oh,
And
great,
am I
great.
audible?
Yes, yes, perfectly.
Okay, perfect, great. Like, I'm using Airtel, not to like say or crib about anything, but then Airtel in my area is really troublesome. So be there
I am
network
using
and
Airtel as well.
so I'm sure so I'm sure you will
Let's
understand.
cross fingers, hope for better connectivity.
Right, right, right.
And
So
if
thank
anything
you,
goes
Vaishnavi.
wrong, the eclipse is to be blamed, okay?
Oh my God, yes. So I'm sure I was talking about eclipse and astrology, how eclipse is connected with astrology, and the
Hmm.
influence it has in our life. Like, it has formed a, I think, the custom or tradition in India. So I was talking about that, and
Hmm.
like I know that. There is more that I want to talk about Sidereal Destiny, but then I
Hmm.
would like to hear from you what you have to say about your book.
Well, Sidereal Destiny, as the name goes, Sidereal is connected, something connected with stars. Okay, so as the name goes, the book is all about how much our thought has an influence on us, how astrology and these kind of beliefs that we have, that is popular in India, as you said, how they affect our lives. So, those Ideal Destiny is categorized under romantic, books, but it's more than romance. It talks about life, the impact of thoughts on our life. It has more on sibling bond and parental relationship and all these things. And I must say that Sidereal Destiny is kind of a semi-autobiography. So
Okay.
more experiences in that come from my own life and the life that I see around. And by the way, I belong to a family that has a publishing house, and we publish astrological books. So
Oh,
that
okay.
makes my connection with the astrologers. So I have
Yes.
seen lot of astrologers, lot of them, and let me make one thing clear. I'm not against astrology. I respect it as a great science which was there in ancient India found by those great people. But the kind of people we have now, the astrologers who practice that now, honestly, it has all reduced to business, nothing more.
Right. And
Maybe
also
there are, yes, yes,
I just wanted to add, I'm sorry,
mm,
I feel like it is a Chinese whisper kind of an effect. Like it has become crooked. Like it might have started, it has a logic, but then
yes,
down the line it has lost its essence, and we don't know what we are doing and why we are supposed to do this. But then I'm
exactly,
sure there is a reason, and there is a certain truth and science behind it. But then
certain.
like it has become crooked. And
Hmm.
like I have more to add to the story, but then I think you should continue.
No, exactly as you said, it has all, boiled down to business and money making, nothing more. In the first place, people go to an astrologer when there is a problem, right? If you don't have problem, you don't go usually. So that is
Right.
basically because you don't want to face your problem. You don't want to find out why the problem is there in the first place. You don't want to
Right.
sit with your problem and observe it. Instead, you want someone to tell and you want something else to blame. Like when we started, we said if connectivity goes wrong, it's all because of solar eclipse. So that is the kind of thing we do. When something goes wrong with life, you say, oh, Shani ne kiya hai, or it is all because of Jupiter is not happy with me. So you always want to put the blame on someone else. Okay, so that attitude I think should change, but the astrologers that we have now, they would let you do that, right? They will keep you trapped in all those thought processes. What happens now is you go, you say your problem is this, and they give you some solution. Go to this temple, go do that puja, you go do that. Luckily, if your problem solves, it's fine, but otherwise you go again. Now they will tell you, now this is not the problem, now this planet is angry with you, now go and do something for this, right? So this is a kind of business that is going around, and it's up to us to use our brain, to use our experience from life to look around and then decide what we should believe and what we should, not believe. So that is what Sidereal Destiny is all about. We have two couples with two love stories. Their journeys are different, but they face the same kind of problem. But the way they react to it and what happens in their life is different. And that is what all Sidereal Destiny is about.
Yes. And what I, if you remember, like our association, like we know each other, it's been almost a year,
Yes.
and there has been many a time, I was like, your book has been a part of many literature festivals, and which
Mhm.
where I was also participating. And then we had a
Yes.
mutual understanding that, or a mutual discussion that Sidereal Destiny will be listed on my website, online
Yes.
bookstore. And I understand that Sidereal Destiny is not, even though it falls under the romance category, but then it's
Yes.
not an off the shelf conventional love story like a
Hmm.
boy meet girl,
No,
or
it is
uh,
not.
like a
Yes, the
rich
usual
girl and
Bollywood
poor.
formula.
Right.
Yes, the usual
It's
cinematic formula. Yes.
Right. It's more of coming to your terms, or coming or understanding your choice, or understanding yourself, coming to terms.
Exactly.
Like even after marriage in India, we have this belief that, oh, shadi ho chuki hai, now my life ends. Like
Now,
there is
on that
nothing
note, let
beyond.
me add one thing. Usually in movies, what in these romantic movies, the formula has been same over the years. I mean, it's either the girl is rich or the boy is rich. One is rich, one is poor, and then
Right,
the
right,
father
right.
becomes the villain, and then there are the gundas and all those fight and all these things. But actually, in India, the real problem, the real villain is always caste, religion, astrology, and these kind of things, isn't it?
Right, right, right. And also,
Yeah.
like in arranged marriage is so prevalent. You see, and then to be very, I believe in astrology. I believe in I had studied, but then it's not a professional study or course, but then I was inclined to understand, and I realized that the alignment of planets and your lines, they keep changing. It's not
Yes,
fixed. It's not something written on stone. Like it keeps on changing. So
exactly.
today,
Yes.
what like your lines or your horoscope will say will
Hmm.
be different after like a couple of years. So I understand that,
Exactly.
but then there are very few people who do not understand. But then what I wanted to say is, without any offense, offense to anyone, I do not understand how matching horoscopes to understand whether a couple is compatible and should be married. That I do not understand, because for me, um, without any offense, I'm sorry, but then I do not understand that part. But then I'm sure it's so much prevalent in India, like matching
It
horoscopes, and
is,
I
it
have seen,
is.
love stories breaking up just because their horoscopes did not match.
People don't believe
And
in love at first sight, but they do believe in making this kind of horoscope match and then living with that.
right, exactly. And I have seen, like, even I have never had the courage to speak up, but about this. But then I have seen in my family, maybe 28 things have, the guns have matched, but still
Uh-huh.
they are not happy couple. So, so, so it's like, if like, I don't get the logic, but I'm sure there is a science behind it, which we like, it might have got crooked, like coming down to us, but then I'm sure there
And
is
not
a
used for the
science
right
behind it.
purposes.
Yes, exactly. So, so what I was talking about your Sidereal Destiny. I have the book with me. So it is not any off-the-shelf conventional, but then
Yes.
it's beyond. It's finding your soulmate. It realizing that
Yes.
this is love, and standing for your right, your love, and
Yes.
not thinking that, oh, I am married, so my life is over now. So it's
Mm.
much more beyond that, and I think this story is going to give strength, and many people are going to like, again, if you read it just for the sake of reading a book, then you will not, you will get one kind of understanding out of the
Yes.
story, but then the real essence is the strength and the courage that it gives, that it shows that
Yes.
you can have. So that is
Exactly.
why,
Exactly.
we both of us discussed and agreed that yes, this is a good book and this needs to be read by many people. So, is there anything else you want to add to Sidereal Destiny?
Uh,
I have few more topic
mhm.
questions to ask.
Okay,
So,
regarding Sidereal Destiny or something else?
Uh, actually, I was wondering, like, this is a full-fledged book that you have published, and it was
Mhm.
published, I think, last year. What,
Yes.
how did you think of getting published? It's not a very easy process in India, that I know, but what made you think that, yes, now I'm ready to get published?
Partly, I would say it is not knowing the risk that made me publish. I knew about it only after coming, after that happened, and then I realized, okay, this has so many things to it. So that's one on one side. But otherwise, see, I used to write from very young age.
Okay.
Uh, though I've not published, I used to write from very young age, and then uh, at times my family has criticized me for writing. That is during the teenage time, and then you know how the teenage mind works. So then I completely stopped all kind of creative writing. I stopped it there, and then after coming to college and after meeting my life partner, then you know how romance can stir up all these creative things.
Creativity.
So that's how, yeah, creativity. So that's how it started again. And then the publishing part, yes, once you have a flair for writing, that desire to get published is always there. And you can't define a particular moment when you decided, I want to be a published author. It doesn't happen that way. It's there. So, but in my case, how I got published was like quite unexpected. In 2011, I was writing some material for a blog regarding how to handle your relationships after marriage, especially in an Indian scenario when you go into a joint family and you have a lot of other members, and it's like an overnight change for the women, right? And but
Right.
I believe from my experience, from the people I see around, I believe it has more to that. It's not just the woman who has to do something. In fact, men should understand more about it. So keeping all these things in mind, and the kind of advices that I have got from my cousins and all that, so I wrote something, and I thought I would publish that in a blog or something, a blog or some magazine or something like that. But then my husband suggested, why don't you send it to some publishers? So I did, and I got positive response from 2 or 3 publishers. Rupa was one, and then there was Pustak Mahal and some others as well. So finally, I agreed to sign a contract with Pustak Mahal, and then the book came out. So it was a breeze kind of thing, but then I didn't want to start my journey with a self-help book. So to that extent, I was a bit dissatisfied as well. And then later, I understood that I made some wrong choices in regarding my publishing part, right? So I don't want to go into the depth of it. I have already put that in my blog. So I realized that I made some choices that were not very positive for my book. So I must admit that that did affect me very badly, and I was totally away from this, writing and publishing for about 9 years. So that's why you see this gap. After 2011, then my writing comes in 2019. But at the same time, in 2011, I came out with this book. Then my article got published in the Hindu newspaper. At the same time, some 8 to 10 poems got published with News India. I hope you know News India. It's quite a reputed journal. So that initial phase was easy for me. Then after that, there came a setback. And now then I've come back to writing. And if time allows, can I speak more on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So because I want the upcoming writers to know this, what inspired me or what gave me the strength to come back is actually writing letters. I am very fond of writing letters, the real pen and paper letter, not the email, not the chat kind of thing. I love to write letters, and I used to write letters to my teachers or my very close friends and so on. So once during my B.Ed time, when I was doing B.Ed, and the course was almost over, and it was a farewell time, and I wrote a letter to our teacher. And it so happened that she was moved to tears. Okay, so there's nothing new about it because we know each other, and therefore the emotion. But then she took it to home. Her daughter read it, her mother read it, her sisters read it, and everyone was emotional. So that's when I realized, God, there is something about words, right? And maybe I'm not a very, a master literary person, but still, I suppose my words has something in it, right? So I thought, okay, then I must try again. So that is one thing that gave me strength. And I came back to writing. And then once Sidereal Destiny was live, yes, I'm continuing.
So do You continue writing letters?
Uh, Not now. You know why? People are not very. They like to receive letters, but nobody writes back to me, and I'm quite disappointed with that. I would really appreciate if someone writes a pen and paper letter to me. People don't do that.
So a few days back, I was having a discussion with my bloggers team, and then there were few people who had started, like in my team, they had started a pen pal group club where they share, they write letters and they share it. And I
Great.
remember like when I was growing up, uh, now there is no relevance to this, but then when I was growing up, like we hardly had access to phones, right?
Yes.
Even like
Yes.
landlines were so rare,
Yeah.
and we would have a crush, like teenage crushes, and we
Exactly.
would write letters. We would
Exactly.
visit, like
Exactly.
secretly go to post office, buy Indian
Yes.
letters or postcards, and then now even writing like one paragraph, it has become a huge task. Like I think like, oh my God, I need to write. But then yes, I think it has its own charm. But
It is.
is there anything, Vaishnavi, that you think uh, can be or could be changed in the publishing scenario or in the publishing sector in India currently? Like you have already published 2 books, and I'm
Hmm.
sure there will be many more. But from your experience, is there anything that you feel that should be changed or could be made better?
Uh, to be very honest, I don't. I've not thought in that line, and I don't know will the publishing industries be interested in, to bring that kind of a flip where the author is really benefited and the reader gets to see different kind of works. Okay, so that's one. And I think an attitude change can come from customers. We usually, including me, we tend to look at the books that have been published by the top end publishing houses, right?
Right, right,
Uh,
right.
and when it comes to the self-published books, the general attitude is, oh, come on, anyone can do that, right? So that
Or
kind of an
maybe an
at
Indian author, like, oh, this is
yeah,
published by an Indian author.
yes,
So
Indian
yes,
author. So I think Indians should promote more Indian authors.
yes, absolutely.
We agree that maybe the British would write better English in a better way. Okay, that's fine. But then you get to see
But
your story only with an Indian author,
yes,
right? In most
yes,
cases,
yes,
if not all.
yes. Trust me, the authors that I am associated with, like you being one of them, I
Hmm.
really see. My knowledge is very limited, but then I feel there is so much of potential, and I feel that uh, if I can even promote 1%, then like
Hmm.
my life would be like honored. So I think the readers need to realize this, and
Yes.
we all need to come together and promote
Hmm.
good authors, good content. um,
Exactly.
and one more thing, I think even I see the plight of authors
Yes.
who go through the publishing scenario. Writing is one act that you are masters, like you are experts. You
Hmm.
write brilliantly, but then when you go for publishing, like hardly you are aware of the process that are involved, or the
Exactly.
things the technicality that goes into it. So I think there should be a body or an association, even if it is a third party, which
Hmm.
helps aspiring authors to understand the process that are involved. So I think there should be
Yes.
something.
And make things more
It's high time that
transparent.
there some.
Yes.
Yes, and it should be easily approachable. Like I come across so many authors, and who are not aware of that this kind of things happen, or the number of challenges on the number of things needs to be in
Yes. Yes.
place before you publish a book. So yes,
Exactly.
I really agree.
I think that's the first
I
point. That's the most important thing. A writer should know why he or she is writing. That's very important.
Right, right,
If
right.
all you
Yes,
want is
yes,
just
yes.
to connect with some of your friends and others, once in social media, then you can easily do that. That doesn't require too many technicalities in it. You can simply post it in Facebook, or you can come up with a free ebook or any other social media. But in case you are the one looking for literary appreciation, then the journey is a bit hard. You should be prepared to face a lot of rejections, and it's all about perseverance, right? You have to wait, you have
Yes,
to
yes,
do it
yes.
again, over and over again. That's one.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
in case your journey is to become the best-selling author, then it requires a lot of PR work as well. That's the honest thing, right? You have to invest money. Nobody can write a book and become rich or best-selling author overnight unless your content is so brilliant and luck is
Yes,
all by your side.
absolutely.
That's very rare
And I
case.
think and I think it's a very long journey to
It
become,
is.
to reach the top in this field. I'm not sure how it happens. Like the minimum number of international authors that I'm associated with, I see that their concept is vastly different than the concept that is currently prevalent in India. So in
Yes,
India,
yes,
it takes a lot of time to reach the best-selling point post, but then you have to be, as you mentioned, perseverance and
yes.
patience. You have to be patient and do not expect
See,
any monetary
one more thing
monetary
is,
profit.
yes, yes. And I want to add something. This industry is very subjective, right? Now, you might like my poems. As an Indian, it might relate to you, but the case would not be same with someone else. And then again, now there might be like the market is more for the LGBT kind of writing, and more bold writing on a physicality. All these things are now in trend. Now, but if you are not a writer comfortable with that kind of writing, it's not that I'm not telling that it is wrong. It's good. Everything is good. But suppose you're not comfortable with it, then definitely your writing won't find a place there, right? So this is a very subjective area, and nothing I believe helps you as much as patience.
Correct. You have also published one book before Sidereal Destiny, which is called Mystic Reflections, if I'm
Yes.
not uh, saying
Yes, you're
incorrectly.
correct. Yeah.
And I remember it's a very short read. It's a very short story.
Yes.
It's the story of a 12-year-old child,
Yes.
but but then, as I mentioned, what I really like about your writing style is that there is always this underlying story. So one story is there which you can read, and okay, the 12-year-old child staying in a perfect, all perfect
World. Yes.
world where everything is perfect and everything, okay, wow, very good, nice. But then actually there is this undercurrent or underlying story content which talks
Yes.
about the self discovery and
Yes.
the journey to understand the realization, the self
Mm.
realization. So
Yes. Yes.
would you like to say more about this book?
Yes. Mystic Reflections is more like an allegory, as you had put it. The
Okay.
surface story is different. Child, she has everything that one can desire for, and yet falls into a trouble, and then the whole story is about finding a solution for that. And in search of that solution, her parents, along with the crowd, there is a crowd that moves along with this family to every place they
Okay.
go. And this crowd
Hmm.
keeps chattering in the background. And they go to different places, and I've put it like north, south, west, and east. So they go to all these directions, yet they don't find a solution. And in the final moment, there is an inner call for this girl to break the convention and then move out to a world that is different, a world that is more
Right.
close to nature. And there she loses her all her physical comforts, and opens up to all the natural phenomenon. And that's when the change really
Okay.
comes. So that's where the solution evolves. So personally, I enjoyed writing the story a lot. One, because um, there is a kind of pleasure in writing these kind of stories where you have this dual thing in that.
Right,
And
right, right, right.
yes, and then another thing is each character represents, some element, some aspect of our mind. Like the girl Mauna, which literally translates to silence, is that silent part of our mind which always seeks for something and is not satisfied with that. Okay, so that search continues. And then you have Mauna's mother who keeps chattering always. So that's like our chattering mind, which never shuts down. Even if you close your lips, that keeps going on and on,
Right,
our
right.
thoughts. And then you have Mauna's father, who is much like our intellect. So as long as this mind goes on chattering, 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 intellect will be dull. So that's why the father doesn't talk much, or he never gets a chance to talk much,
To talk.
right? And then again, I have tried my best to expose the kind of funny things that happen when you go to all these Gurujis and Swamijis and God men and all that. So I enjoy doing
Yes,
that.
yes, right. So this is what I really like about your writing, that this uh, two-toned and dual-toned
Yes.
stories, and which I think if, like as I mentioned, if you just pick the book up and read it, it will give you a different meaning. But then when you go under, start reading between the lines, you will understand what's the under current or the underlying
Yes.
story is actually.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
So I also know that you are a big fan of poetry, Vaishnavi. I know
Yes.
you write poems, and you also have a podcast called the Poetry.
Poetry
I'm
within.
sorry,
Yes.
the
The
Poetry
poetry
Within.
within.
So,
Yes.
so tell me more about podcasts. I'm hearing it everywhere, podcasts, and what
Hmm.
exactly it is. That if you need to listen to your poems, then how can we do that? So tell me more about that, please.
Well, let me talk first about poetry, then podcast.
Sure.
Poetry, I believe it is within all of us. That is why when suddenly we are in romance or any kind of high emotion, suddenly our words become philosophical and then we write all these unusual way of representing our thoughts. We do that. So I believe poetry is within all of us. And for me, I think the first poem that I wrote was when I was 11 or something. And
Okay.
and I instantly fell in love with that. I mean, I must say the genre. So, um, so that is what I find special about poetry. It can talk a lot. It can convey a lot with just few words. And being a
Okay.
writer, I
Yes.
would say writing a poetry is very easy in the sense it's not time consuming. Editing is easy. So for all those reasons, I love poetry. Okay.
So maybe
So
quickly
that's
jotting down whatever comes to your mind. So just, and then
yes, and
like
then we
before
work
going
on
to
it.
sleep, maybe, yeah, just
Yeah.
edit it and
Yes, and,
final
and
touches.
that's one beauty about poetry. You have to pay attention. It comes all of a sudden from somewhere, and then you work on it, right? So I really love that whole process where this the idea comes from somewhere beyond the thought kind of scenario. Maybe not always, but it happens mostly like that. There are instances when you have never thought about writing such a poetry, such an idea has never come to your mind, but all of a sudden you don't know from where it comes, and then you jot it down. So that whole experience is wonderful. So that's one. And talking about podcast is gaining popularity now, though not much in India, I believe. It's still in the budding phase. So podcast is much like our radio broadcasting. The only
Okay.
difference is in radio, when you listen to a radio, you don't have a choice to flip the channels, or maybe your choice is limited. But unlike that, when it comes to podcasting, there are numerous channels on different topics categorized.
Okay.
So you can choose whatever you like. There are storytelling podcasts which narrate stories, detective stories. And then I think the most popular genre among them is interviews. Okay, when
Okay.
people talk to each other and then get to know more about the celebrity, or maybe in case of podcast, I think they move away from this usual celebrity quest and find out different people who have done different things in life. So that is
Okay.
what something unique about podcast, or all
Okay.
these podcast interviews. And poetry podcast is even rarer, because usually poetry has this tag on it that poetry never sells, right? So with that,
I have
yes.
sold more poetry books than anything else. Like even in
That's great.
the the literature festivals that I have always visited, like the poetry books are like flying off the shelf. Like
Great, great,
so.
great. I think you must write on that, or may make some, presentation on that.
Wow.
Okay. So yes. So
So
as I said,
my job is to sell. Your job is to write. So you once you are ready
no,
with your
you can
content,
make a
just let me know. I'll,
statement. No, as a
yes,
book, someone associated with the book industry, you can make a statement. See, poetry sells, and I proof
yes,
for this.
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I
So
have.
yes. So the general belief is like that, by the way. So I think that to some extent keeps people away from poetry, but things are changing a lot, especially with the coming in of these social media and all that. So, but even then, I think poetry podcasts are less in number when compared to the interview and all those things, but still
Okay,
they are there. Now, coming to my poetry podcast, one thing is I have not the book that I've chosen for this first season is Geetanjali. Uh, that is
okay.
Rabindranath Tagore's Geetanjali.
Yes,
That's my
yes.
personal favorite for many reasons. So, one, I wanted to promote Indian poetry, and I thought I would start from the master himself. And another thing is, usually in these poetry podcasts, they add their commentary or their perspective on the poem and so on. But I
Okay.
thought I would keep it simple, and I just want people to listen to it, to enjoy it, maybe repeatedly listen to it, and make out a meaning for themselves. Especially in case of these poems like Geetanjali, the words are very simple. Of course, they are profound. They have very profound meaning, but then they have been, Tagore has written them in very, very simple words.
Very
So all
simple.
what you
Right,
have to
right.
do is, yes, so all what you have to do is to listen to it and then make out the meaning, whatever that comes to you. That makes more sense, I believe, instead of, listening to what someone else has to say. So with that notion in mind, what I've done is in each episode, I recite a song from Geetanjali and then to the tone of music. So I'm not a professional. I have no idea what music goes well with what kind of words. No, I don't have any idea of that. I'm just experimenting, and more than anything else, I love what I do, so I'm just doing it. And I'm doing it like this from my study room with whatever limited resources that I have. So in between, you can hear the noise of cricket, you can hear my breath. All that is there. It is raw, but it's there. I am enjoying it. And on that note, anyone can start a podcast if you have an idea, if you have the mind to do, take some effort, and then it's quite easy and it's free now. And then it's all about promoting and, uh, reaching out to listeners.
So do
So,
you plan
and
to read or recite your written poems as well on your podcast in the future?
yes, I do have plans, but not immediately. Maybe
Okay.
later.
Do
I
you
have to first,
maybe later?
I'm planning to publish my poetry collection and then maybe I thought I'll
Oh,
read.
okay.
Yeah.
So that was my next question. Any upcoming project? But then maybe we can go to that in some time. So, is
Yeah.
there any poem, or do you want to recite anything for us today? Since you
Yes.
have like you are doing the podcast.
Yes, I'm doing the podcast. Maybe I should start my recitation of my poem here with you.
Yes, yes, yes. Please do that. I'll be
Okay.
honored.
So, but yeah, same here. But before that, let me just add this one. If you want to, anyone wants to, is interested in listening to the poetry podcast, you can go to Spotify. It's in Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast, and available with, you know, all these mainstream podcasting and audio apps. So all you have to do is go and search for the poetry within, right? So I hope
Sure. So I will,
more people will
yes,
listen to it. And yes,
so I will share all these details, like details of your books and your podcast on story once our session is over, so that whoever is interested, they can just browse through and go to that, check
yes,
that
yes.
out. So I'll do that. I'll take the details
And
from you and I'll share it.
yes. And one interesting feature about this podcasting is the listeners, they can record their voice and send their reviews as voice messages. And these can be
Okay.
added to later episodes. So
Oh,
I
okay.
am looking forward to, to hear these beautiful voices with their reviews
Absolutely.
and anything else that they have to talk about Geetanjali or Indian poetry is a warm welcome. So I'm looking forward to it.
Sure.
So let's see.
Sure. Great.
Okay. So I thought we'll start with reciting this poem, which is titled Bali and the Virus. This
Okay.
poem was written in response to this COVID pandemic situation, and it was published with the Commonwealth Writers. Okay.
Okay.
So this again has a bit of Hindu mythology, spirituality, everything in it. And Bali here is as in Mahabali.
Okay.
I hope everyone is aware of who is Mahabali. I don't think I should give an explanation. But for those who don't know, please Google it. He was a very popular king in Indian mythology. Yes. So now I talk about Bali here, and then when I say he, it means the humanity now as well as Bali, right? So interchangeable thing. Okay. So the title is Bali and the Virus. Bali was strong, very, very strong. He is stronger, or so he thought. Nuclear bombs, missiles, warships, fighter planes. He had everything that it takes to be the lord of the world. But he has more: gods, shrines, flags, reservations, organizations, classes, muscles, borders, and boundaries. And he ruled over. They are his fashion, food, flesh, footwear, the ocean his drainage, the air his ashtray. What's more, even space became his trash can. That's when, from the realms unseen, from the forms unimagined, came a dwarf, as small as a virus amidst 6 feet, 7 feet, sky-tall men. What can a dwarf do? Can I have 3 feet space of your world? It asked. 3 tiny feet was no great deal for the king. Bali grunted. He takes everything for granted. Grew, grew, 1 foot covering the entire earth, 1 foot on the space. Hand washes, sanitizers, masks, exhausted. Nothing could stop it. It grew, it expanded. The third foot, ready to crush, was placed on Bali's head. Bali, then seeing no virus but the foot of Vamana, took off the pride from his head and surrendered to the foot that resurrected him to a new world. He now has above him the third foot. What does he see? Okay, so that's how it ends.
Very wonderful, and I think it resonates with the current time so much. I think you might have
Yes,
written it keeping the lockdown and the virus in mind and how it might go
exactly,
with
exactly.
the
I found the
the
situation very similar. In the mythology, this king, he is very arrogant and he's very proud and he has everything that he wants, and he believes that he's a master of the world and starts to kind of abuse people and put the entire
right.
creation in a difficult situation. And this is exactly what we are doing now. And the only
We
difference
took
is there
everything for
God
granted.
came. Yes, took everything for granted. And the only difference is their God, or call it realization, whatever, it came as Vamana, and for us it comes in different forms, and now as this virus, I believe. And this is the time when we look back and we realize how far we have, taken things for granted and spoiled our planet.
Right, right,
Once all of us were
right,
inside, nature was healing, right? So that shows how much we have disturbed the entire ecosystem. So
right.
keeping that in mind,
Absolutely
I have
correct.
written this one. So I
And
hope
I'm sure,
people love that.
yes,
Yeah,
it was. Yes, yes, yes. I really liked it. And I'm sure
thank you.
there are more. And I think this is going to be one of the poems in your upcoming poetry book. I'm not sure
Yes,
if you will say
exactly.
yes or no. Okay, all
Of
right.
course, of
Great.
course. My poetry book would mostly be like a compilation of all that I've published either in social media or in other
Okay,
literary magazines.
great. And
Yeah.
like by when can we expect your poetry book out in the market?
Uh, to be honest, I have it's almost ready for publishing, but I've not reached out to any publishers as of now. So with last three books, I have experimented all three kinds of publishing: the traditional one, the self-publishing with some guidance, and then the completely free and easy to do, the Amazon Kindle publishing. So I've done all that, and then I am sort of, thinking which way to approach this time.
I
So
hope you come up with the best publishing house,
yes,
as even though it's a great challenge, but I
it
really
is.
hope that you find your match. It's almost like a matrimony, but
Yes, it is.
I really hope you find your match soon and we get to read your poetry book. Um, and I'm really so like I'm so glad we got to chat. We never spoke about all these things earlier. Whenever we
Yes,
had our discussions, it was always related to work. Um, but
exactly.
like all these things, like it's so nice to have this chat. I really liked it, catching up with
Same
you,
here, same here.
and and I'm going to share this session, this recording on our IGTV later
Sure.
and also on our YouTube channel. So I'll share all the links with you so that you can share with your friends and your followers and share, like, let them see how the conversation went. Um,
Yes.
so, but then I really want to thank you and like uh, before we wrap up today, I want to hold the book once again. I want to show how beautiful the cover is. In fact, a few months back, we had organized a giveaway as well for this
Yes.
paperback, and it was a very great success. Like there were so many participants, and
Yes.
like this book is available on our online bookstore, my secretbookshelf.co.in, and it's a signed copy.
Yes.
So Vaishnavi has been kind enough to sign it. So like I request you to visit our website, go through the blurb, and if it interests you, then do purchase it. We are delivering to every zone except Tamil Nadu right now, but I'm sure like next month we'll
Yeah,
resume the
hopefully
shipping as well.
situations would get better. Yes.
Yes, I'm hoping, but
Yes.
like we are otherwise we are shipping to
Mm-hmm.
every zone. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. So take a look, people, and thank you, Vaishnavi, for
Thank you
joining me
so
today.
much. Thank
And
you so much.
I hope we will do much more sessions in the future like
Can I
this.
request you something before we wrap
Yes,
up?
yes,
But I
yes,
know,
please.
I know my secret bookshelf is a wonderful place to be for authors and readers alike.
Thank you.
But could you tell something about this venture?
So my secret bookshelf was I started as a reviewer and I got associated with many new authors. And then initially, my secret bookshelf was only a page where I would post my reviews. And this is almost like 2, 3 years back, um, almost. 2.5 years back, and then I realized that we need to like one it was nothing planned, but then I saw that there is this gap between uh, readers and
Readers and
authors,
yes, yes,
and I thought that why not do this, like why not bridge the gap, bring the authors closer to the readers and take the readers closer to the authors. And if the content is good, then it should be known all around. So
yes.
it's not only about traditionally published books or self-published
Mm.
books, but then there are so many contents which are coming out. uh, so I make it a point that I'm reading a lot, and I'm constantly going through the latest published, be it any, like I
Yes.
can't even tell you the number of publishing houses I'm associated with. So even if I'm unable to read the books, I make sure that one of my bloggers from my team is reading that book and giving me the feedback. And
Yeah.
if I'm talking about the book, then I believe in that book. I'm not. I'm sure you know me so well.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
so if I'm talking about a book, then it's only because I believe the potential and I like the story. Um, but then if I'm not talking about the book, that means uh, I want to skip that. So and I try to be very honest and very genuine. So the only purpose of my secret bookshelf right now is to promote good content, um, be it any publication, be it any process, but then only Indian authors and good content according to my secret bookshelf. So that is it.
Great, great, great. That's
I'm
wonderful,
so
wonderful.
and I'm so happy that you asked me this question. Like I never got
Yes,
the chance to talk about it, but
I know.
then so I'm really
I know.
glad
We
that
need
I
more people
got to
like
share.
you. That's the fact.
I
We
thank
need
you.
more people like you who would promote Indian work, right?
Right. And I come across many influencers, but then
Mm.
I think that um, the driven factor for those influencers need to be a bit off track
Yes,
when it comes to books. So I
I
try
know.
to spend time with my team, my especially the reviewers, the bloggers that I work with. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to spend time. I try to let them know that this should be how we need to come across an author who needs our guidance. Or there are so many young authors who need to
Yes,
um,
yes.
who needs to know
Need, yeah,
how
need a
things work.
voice. Yes,
Right. So that is what we are trying to do, and I'm sure there will be more new generations, like as and when uh, like I think my secret bookshelf has just completed 2 years. So as we go ahead, there will be more. I'm sure there will be more people joining us, and I'm sure
definitely,
we
definitely.
will do wonder. And there are
Yes.
so many plans that we have in store, um,
Mm-hmm.
like to work with authors. But then everything needs uh, a right time to happen,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
so let's wait and see how it works out. But
Great,
then
great, great.
today is all about Sidereal Destiny. And
Yes.
thank you, Vaishnavi. And
Thank you
today
so
was
much.
wonderful. And I'm sure we will have another discussion in the future soon.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It was
Thank
great.
you.
Wonderful
Take
talking to
care.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Take care.
Have a
You too.
wonderful Sunday. Bye.
Yes. Same here. Bye.
So, guys, that was Vaishnavi Sanoj, the author of Sidereal Destiny. This book, the signed copy of this book is available with us on our online bookstore. And we are also, many of the influencers are also offering discount coupons. So if you follow our story regularly, then you will come across the discount codes, which you can use to make a purchase on our online bookstore. And that's it from me today. And thank you for joining in. And I hope you have a lovely, wonderful week ahead. And I'll see you next Sunday, maybe next to next Sunday. next month. So next Sunday, actually, it's Parul's turn. So Parul will be speaking to two promising authors, Mira Tarka and Heidi Love. So I'll share more details about it. It is going to be a late evening show around uh, 9 p.m., the usual timing. So I'll be sharing more details. Thank you for joining me today.